Long before Shakespeare wrote about Romeo and Juliet, romantics believed in the phenomenon called love at first sight. According to our own Discovery Health Channel online poll, 78% of men have experienced love at first sight. Now compare that to only 54% of women. Considering what we've learned tonight about males and how they are instantly aroused by visual material, it shouldn't surprise us that much, even though we often think of love at first sight as something associated with women. But in the scheme of things, what does this all mean? Our next guest has some fascinating insights on this topic. She is a professor of anthropology and gender studies at the University of Southern California and an expert in the evolution of human social behavior. Please welcome Dr. Amy Parrish. Parrish, thank you for joining us. So are men and women really that different?
Well, I teach a class on sex similarities and differences, and we talk about also similarities between the sexes. I mean, both sexes rate having a very nice person who's easy to get along with as their number one trait that they're looking for in a long-term mate. But how you identify that long-term mate is a little bit different between the sexes.
How is that different?
And so it's not surprising to me that in your poll you found that men talk about love at first sight more than women because men are more visually oriented. So, for instance, in cross-cultural studies, we found that men care a lot about waist-to-hip ratio. It seems to be a universal, or an almost universal, that males like women who have a waist that's 70% the size of the hips.
Does that have some heritage in our evolution?
It's a good indicator of fertility.
So there you go.
Right. And they prefer women with full lips, which are a marker of estrogen. That also would correlate with fertility. Soft jaw lines, which means you haven't been exposed to much testosterone.
How about men? How about women to men?
Women like symmetry in men. Not obvious things like one eye being higher than the other, but things that you can't articulate in words. But for instance, maybe one wrist has a different circumference than the other wrist, or earlobe thickness. Not consciously, but you would rate somebody who's symmetrical in those measures as more attractive than someone who isn't.
Now, is there a difference between lust and love?
I think there is. I think that love at first sight is maybe not very aptly named because it's something that you do in retrospect. You look back and because it's worked out and because it was mutual, then you say, oh, it was love at first sight. But if you were attracted to someone and the attraction wasn't mutual or it didn't go anywhere, then you wouldn't call it love at first sight even though it was probably the same emotion. So it's more like lust at first sight or attraction.
So let me make sure I got you in this. So love at first sight is the same feeling as lust at first sight, but it's when you actually get to have a relationship with the person.
Yeah, that's how I would define it.
Very interesting. Is it rare?
I think, yeah, it's pretty rare to find someone that you're attracted to and that is mutually attracted to you.
Undoubtedly, there are skeptics, so we've invited two couples who experienced immediate mutual attraction and are still together to this day. Please welcome Julie and Scott Telsey, who have been married for 5 months, and Holgi and Chuck Forrester, married for 18 years. Thank you for joining us, guys. So, first ladies, Holgi, how did you meet Chuck?
Well, I had my own business. I was creating exotic dancer costumes for exotic dancers at a club called the Kit Kat Club, which is no longer there in Hollywood. And he rode up on his motorcycle, all in black leather, black jacket, and with one of my best customers. Ooh. And I was trying to describe my outfit, but I was really looking at him saying, oh my God.
So you had a love at first sight, or lust at first sight. I guess it worked out, so it's love at first sight. And Julie, how about you? How did you meet Scott?
He was actually the shuttle bus driver at the hotel in Las Vegas where I was staying. And we actually got married 8 days later.
What was the experience, though? What
it was just, I knew everything about him that I needed to know in the first hour.
But how did you walk up to the shuttle bus driver? I mean, you know what I mean? What happened?
Well,
you guys get an accident or something? Got locked in the bus? Or?
It was a great ride.
I got to break this down a little bit. You walked in the bus, you saw the driver, and what happened to you?
I was with my girlfriend, and she had just been asking me, what kind of guy do you like? Because, you know, and I described him, and we got on the bus, and I went, that's what I like.
Did you have, Scott, a love at first sight experience?
I think it was. I think it was just how you defined it. I think it was kind of I was extremely attracted to her. And I think it took a few days for me to finally realize, I think I'm in love with her. I think she's the one.
And Chuck, your experience?
Well, actually, she described how we met that first day, but she had on a little yellow sundress, and she was like a breath of fresh air. That's the first thing I thought of is, wow, isn't that refreshing? I mean, she's she was just a little doll.
Would you say each of you are very much sort of into each other, for lack of a better way of saying it? You're excited about being together?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And you guys too, Julie and Scott? But after 18 years, it's the same excitement?
After 22 years, the honeymoon's still on. I mean, I look at him, I still get excited.
But is it the same excitement you had when you when you drove up on the motorcycle? Whatever that was, has that been sustaining? So that whatever that thing was, that was their initial attraction, is renewing and sustaining in their relationship for years and years and years. What the heck is that?
Well, a cynical biologist would say that it all comes down to sort of biochemistry, and that you can sort of smell a compatible mate. You can smell good genes, basically, and genes that if you did produce offspring with that individual, you'd end up with kids who have a really great amount of immunity. But even if you don't have kids, you're still attracted to that same kind of individual. So they have an immune system complex that's very, very attractive, would be one explanation.
Thanks, Dr. Parrish, and thanks you guys for helping out. Very, very lovely stories. And I actually know something about love at first sight because I experienced it with my wife of 14 years, and she definitely did not experience it with me. So there she is. My goodness. She took some winning over, but I was helpless. Look at that. Are you kidding? Well, there we are. And yeah, she took some, as you said, bathed in hormones. That was happening to my brain, and neurons were firing off all over the place. And now we have triplets, which are 12 years old. And I swear to you, Dr. Parrish, that the draw that I had towards her was more powerful than anything I'd ever experienced. I thought it's like some gene was calling to me, like my genetic heritage was saying this is the right thing, and it was and there was no way I was smelling anything because it was quite a distance. I assure you.
Women care more about smell than men. Men is much more visual.